Summer 1940, Europe was burning. France had fallen in just 6 weeks, and the British Expeditionary Force had barely escaped across the Channel. On the cliffs of Dover, Britain stood alone, a single island facing the full fury of Hitler's empire. The German war machine, unbeaten and relentless, now turned its eyes toward the skies. Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain, waited only for one thing: air superiority. Hitler believed the Luftwaffe would crush the Royal Air Force within weeks. With over 2,600 aircraft and pilots hardened by victories in Poland and France, his confidence bordered on arrogance. Across the Channel, Churchill answered with defiance, rallying a weary nation with words of fire. Britain's survival depended on radar towers, 700 Spitfires and Hurricanes, and the courage of a few thousand men. But even the most powerful war machine has its cracks. At first glance, the Luftwaffe seemed unstoppable, a storm of steel and precision, backed by victories across Europe. But beneath the surface of triumph lay cracks that would soon split wide open. The Messerschmitt Bf 109, though fast and lethal, had a fatal weakness: its limited range. Once across the Channel, German pilots had mere minutes over British skies before fuel forced them home. Coordination between bomber groups and their escorts faltered, and each mission became a race against time. Hermann Göring's arrogance only deepened the problem. He dismissed radar as a gimmick and ignored the need for long-range bombers that could truly cripple Britain's industry. Logistics lagged behind ambition. Victories demanded planning, not just bravado. Germany had built an air force to win quick wars. Now it was trapped in a drawn-out duel it never prepared for. But what if those flaws never mattered? Now imagine a single change, a decision made not from pride but precision. In this alternate history, Göring resists the urge for vengeance after London's first bombings. Instead, he keeps his focus razor-sharp on the RAF's lifeblood: its airfields, its radar towers, its pilots. Each day, German bombers hammer southern bases, Biggin Hill, Tangmere, Manston, until runways are cratered wastelands. Radar masts topple one by one, blinding British command. The RAF's small squadrons, already stretched thin, begin to collapse under the constant pressure. Aircraft are lost faster than they can be replaced. Mechanics sleep beside hangars. Pilots fight 3 sorties a day, running on adrenaline and tea. In this version of events, Britain's radar screens fade to static. The skies over southern England grow quiet, not from peace but defeat. With the RAF crippled, the Channel lies open. The invasion could finally begin. At dawn, the Channel churns with steel. Barges, ferries, and hastily converted cargo ships surge toward England's southern coast. Above them, Messerschmitts sweep the skies clear while Stukas dive on coastal defenses. Operation Sea Lion, once dismissed as fantasy, now unfolds in terrifying reality. German paratroopers descend over Dover and Brighton, cutting communication lines and seizing vital crossroads. On the beaches, the first waves meet scattered resistance. The Home Guard fights desperately, but with the RAF shattered, there is no cover from above. London's sirens wail again, this time not for bombers but for invasion. Civilians flee inland as the Channel becomes a highway of conquest. Churchill orders every available soldier south, his words defiant but his tone grim. The fate of the free world now hangs on English soil. Britain stands on the brink, and for the first time Hitler dares to believe victory is within reach. But how would Britain respond to the unthinkable? The invasion shatters Britain's illusion of safety. Coastal towns burn as German troops push inland, seizing ports and airfields with ruthless efficiency. The once mighty Royal Navy, spread thin and bombarded from above, struggles to hold the Channel. In London, blackouts deepen, and the air smells of smoke and fear. The RAF's remnants retreat north, launching desperate counterstrikes from hidden bases in Scotland and Wales. Civilians form resistance groups, sabotaging roads and railways, guided by whispered broadcasts from Churchill, his voice the last thread holding a nation together. "We shall never surrender," he declares, even as the front line creeps closer to the capital. In the shadows of Westminster, plans are drawn for evacuation to Canada if the government falls. Yet amidst ruin and despair, the British spirit refuses to die. They fight not for victory but for survival itself, and yet, in Germany's greatest triumph, lay the seeds of its fall. Britain's fall sends shockwaves across the world. In Washington, Roosevelt faces the nightmare he had hoped to avoid: a Nazi-controlled Europe. American industry shifts overnight, rearming faster than ever before. Convoys bound for Canada and the US now carry not just supplies, but the remnants of Britain's leadership, scientists and intelligence officers. In Moscow, Stalin watches uneasily. With Britain gone, Hitler's next move becomes clear: eastward. The Wehrmacht's preparations for Operation Barbarossa are delayed, resources drained by the need to occupy the British Isles. Across the Atlantic, the Commonwealth stirs. Canada mobilizes, Australia sends fleets, and India braces for the expanding Axis shadow. Germany's victory, once absolute, begins to fracture under its own weight. The empire stretches too far too fast. Maintaining control of Britain proves costlier than conquering it. And while Hitler celebrates, the world starts to turn against him. Winning the Battle of Britain may have lost him the war. With Britain under German control, the balance of global power collapses. The Mediterranean becomes an Axis lake. Malta falls, Egypt buckles, and Rommel's panzers push through to the Suez Canal. In Asia, Japan seizes the moment, striking British colonies in Burma and Singapore months ahead of schedule. The United States, alarmed but unprepared, faces war on two fronts it never wanted. Without Britain's bases or navy, Allied supply lines crumble. Resistance groups fight in secret, but German reprisals are merciless. Across Europe, a darker age settles in, one where Nazi flags hang from Buckingham Palace and the BBC becomes a propaganda mouthpiece. Yet beneath the fear, embers of rebellion still glow. But Germany's reach has limits. Occupation bleeds resources, and the empire begins to strain under its own ambition. The greater the victories, the heavier the burden of control. And in every shadowed corner of Europe, whispers begin anew: power built on fear never lasts. If Germany had won the Battle of Britain, the war's moral compass would have shattered. Democracy in Europe could have vanished beneath an iron curtain decades early. The concentration camps, once hidden in the east, might have expanded unchecked across the continent. For millions, resistance would mean death. For the rest, silence. The dream of freedom, extinguished before it could reach another dawn. Yet such a victory would also poison Germany from within. An empire sustained by terror cannot endure peace. The same machinery that conquered would turn inward, devouring its own people. History shows that power without conscience breeds collapse. Britain's real survival became more than a military triumph. It was a statement of human will, a defiant answer to tyranny itself. Because sometimes the greatest victories are not those of conquest, but of endurance. And that endurance and that refusal to kneel what became the turning point of the entire century. Because survival itself is history's greatest victory. In the end, the Battle of Britain was more than an air campaign. It was civilization on a knife's edge. For 114 relentless days, a handful of young pilots faced overwhelming odds. Not for territory, but for time. Time for freedom to breathe. Had Germany triumphed, the map of our world would bear no resemblance to what we know. London might have become another Berlin, and the words liberty and democracy might have vanished into whispers of the past. But they didn't, because a small island refused to yield, because radar operators, engineers, mechanics, and civilians all played their part in holding the line. The RAF's victory was not inevitable. It was carved out of desperation, sweat, and the belief that courage could outweigh conquest. And in that struggle, humanity rediscovered its soul. Hitler's dream of domination ended, where the skies of England turned him back. The Battle of Britain didn't just save a nation, it saved an idea. It proved that even in the darkest storm, light can fight back. So the question remains, if courage could change the course of history once, could it again?